In this video, I'm going to share 5 tips for capturing better quality vocals. The first way to get better quality vocals is to simply use the correct polar pattern on your microphone. There are a lot of different polar patterns, and when I'm talking about polar patterns, I'm talking about the various ways a microphone captures sound from around the body of the microphone. And you'll typically find polar patterns like omnidirectional, cardioid, supercardioid, hypercardioid, figure 8, and a whole bunch more. And when it comes to recording vocals, you're typically going to want to use a cardioid polar pattern on your mic. Now, what that means is that it's going to pick up sounds from in front of the microphone and it's going to reject sounds from the rear. And on different microphones, you may find that you have the option to select between various polar patterns. So just make sure that you've got cardioid mode selected. Now, it's also important that once you have cardioid mode selected, you want to make sure that you're singing in the right direction of the microphone. You want to find where that logo is and make sure that you're singing into the mic right in front of it. If you were to sing from behind, you're going to get a lot of rejection and your voice is going to sound really thin. So always make sure that you've got the microphone pointed in the right direction. Believe me, it sounds like a silly mistake, but people make it all the time. The second way to get better quality vocals is to simply use a pop filter. It's basically pantyhose-like material inside of a circle. And what this does is you're going to place it right in front of your microphone, and this prevents air from blowing into the microphone and causing loud popping sounds. You definitely don't want that in your recording. If you've got a great take, the worst thing is to have it destroyed by little poof, poof, like that kind of sound in your take.
Yeah, baby, let's party, yeah.
You definitely want to use a pop filter to make sure that you get the cleanest performance. That way, you don't have to re-record takes or edit them after the fact. The third way to capture great quality vocals is to be mindful of the singer's distance from the microphone. Now, there's this thing called proximity effect. So as I start to move closer to my microphone, you're going to hear more low end, right? So as I'm talking, you're hearing way more low end in the microphone. Now, as I start to move further back from the microphone, my voice starts to sound a little bit thinner and a little bit more controlled. So generally, a safe spot when you're recording your vocals is to be between 6 to 9 inches away from the microphone. And that's going to give you a pretty nice, clear tone.
Open up your mind and let me step inside. Rest your weary head and let your heart decide.
Now, if you wanted that extra low end, you could certainly move a little bit closer to your microphone, but you do want to make sure that that low end isn't overpowering and making your vocals feel imbalanced. So just be mindful of how that proximity effect plays in, and then you can use that to your advantage when you need to. The fourth way to get cleaner vocals is to simply avoid handling noise. So a lot of singers like to get really into their performances, and many singers like to hold onto a microphone as they sing. But in the studio, that can become very problematic because as a singer starts to move around a microphone or maybe even tap on the microphone, it can cause vibrations to get into the recording, which ultimately are going to sound very distracting and become hard to edit out. So you always want to make sure that your microphone is on a stand and not in the singer's hands, because that stuff can become very problematic later on. And handling noise doesn't just come from physically holding the microphone. Even if you have your microphone on a stand, you may still capture vibrations coming through your floor. So if you're in an area that has lots of traffic or construction nearby, there might be vibrations that are traveling through your floor, making their way up the microphone stand and vibrating your microphone, and then those vibrations can get captured and ruin your vocal performances. So the easiest way to avoid that is to simply use a shock mount whenever you're using a condenser microphone. It's basically a little mic clip that has elastic bands in it, and it prevents the microphone from absorbing all the vibrations. So as sound travels through the microphone stands, the microphone itself will just move within the rubber bands and it won't pick up on all of those vibrations. So by having a shock mount, it definitely makes your recordings a lot cleaner, and it's going to avoid any of those rumbles that travel through your floor. The last way that you can get better vocals is by making sure that you have consistent volume and dynamics by simply playing with distance to the microphone. Now, as we saw earlier, as you move further away from a microphone, you're going to get a thinner vocal sound. But not only do you get a thinner vocal sound, as you move further away from a microphone, you're going to get less volume as well. Conversely, as you move closer to a microphone, you're going to get a louder signal as well. So this is very important to keep in mind as we're talking about the various energy levels of a vocal performance. For example, if you have a whisper,
this is a whisper.
If you're standing way too far back from the microphone, you're not going to even hear that whisper. It's going to be very, very buried.
This is a whisper.
Whereas if you have a scream,
this is the loud part,
and you're really close to a microphone, it's going to distort your signal. So we need to be mindful of how far away the microphone is from the singer and what energy levels they have as they're singing. And then based on that, we need to get the singer to move closer or further away from the microphone to make sure that we have consistency.
Sometimes I will sing quiet, and then I will start to get loud. Now I'm yelling, then I get really quiet again.
And this is something that a lot of singers struggle with, especially if they've never been trained on it before. So as recording engineers, we need to be mindful of that so that we can coach someone through the performance. So as you can see, it makes a really big difference once you have proper technique and distance from the mic. So by being mindful of this, it's going to guarantee that you not only get consistency as far as volume goes with your tracks, but it's also going to guarantee that you get a cleaner recording because you're not going to be clipping your signal. It also means that you're not going to have to rely as much on things like compression or automation to get quieter parts to stand out in a mix, because doing so might actually become problematic and introduce noise as you boost quiet signals. So at least by tracking things properly right at the source and having that consistent performance and consistent volume, it's going to guarantee that your tracks sound much better in the end. So there you have it. Those are 5 different ways that you can get better quality vocal recordings. Now, some of these things may seem like small details, but trust me, I've seen so many people overlook them, and it can cause a lot of problems in a mix. So if you follow these 5 steps, you're going to get way better quality vocals, and that's going to make your life significantly easier as you get into editing and mixing. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, please make sure to subscribe. And if you're looking for additional help with your music production and mixes, make sure to visit MasterYourMix.com. On that website, I've got a ton of great resources for you to check out. One of which is my Ultimate Mixing Blueprint, which is a guide that shows you how to use EQ, compression, and more in your mixes so that you can easily create pro results. So make sure to check that out. You can grab that at MasterYourMix.com/blueprint, or I'll include a link somewhere up here.